Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone. In the last session, we have discussed about lang packages and object class. Object class methods of hash code method, toString method, equals method, and clone method. So we have already seen toString method is for representing the object as a string representational format. Now in today's session, we will see the hash code method. What do the hash code method? The hash code method will give the hash code of the object. It returns the hash code of the object. So see here, I'm using the hash code method. I have overridden this hash code method. If I overridden the hash code method, the output will be in the hash code. So if you see here, this is the hash code of the object 64 and 6e is the hash code of the object. In case if there is no hash code method, if there is no hash code method, yes, I am commenting this hash code method. If there is no hash code method, then you can see the output. The output is, see here, 15db9. It's a objective. So when you use this hash code, it returns the hash code of the object. It returns the hash code of the object. Then this hash code object will convert into the string representational format using the toString object. Now the hash code is 64 is the hash code of the object and 60 is the hash code of the object. For this 164 for 110, the value of 110 of the hash code is 6e. Now if you want to convert this hash code value into string representational format, then we have to override the toString method of the object class. These all are the methods of object class. So this object class toString method will convert this object into string representational format as 100 and 110. So here I have created an object for this class, test hash code t1 equal to new test hash code. Then here have a constructor. For this constructor we have only one parameter, that is I value. So the I value I am passing as 100. Now t1 object is 100 and then t2 object is 110. Now I'm trying to print t1 and t2 object. So when I'm trying to print this T1 and T2 objects, the hash code method returns the hash code of 100 and hash code of the 110 value. And then this hash code, if you want this hash code as a string representational format, then we need to override this with toString method. So the toString method is overridden here so that it is converted into the string representational format. Then the other two methods are clone method and equals method. Clone method and equals method. Then let us see the equals method. What it do the equals method? Here is the dot equals method. The equals method is, so if you see here, I have created a class that is student. I have created a class that is student. And then I have defined two variables. Those are string name and then roll number. A roll number is int type. It allow only digits, numeric values. Then here, this is a method. Student is a method. Which method it is? It's a specialized method which name is same as class name. So we call it as a constructor. Have defined a constructor. For this constructor, I have passed two parameters. Those are name and roll number. Name and roll number. As you already know, what's this? This represents the current class variables. So this dot name is this name and this dot roll number is this roll number. So these are the local variables. Okay. So the variables which we define inside a method, we call it as local variables. So these are the local variables. The scope of these variables are within the method. So only here we cannot use these methods out of, we cannot use these variables out of this method. The scope will be within the method. So I want to use these values, these variable values out of this method. So if I want to use these values out of this method, then I must assign these values, these local variable values to global values, to class variables. So these two are the class variables. The scope of these variables is object. So whenever we create an object, we can use these variables. So the scope of these variables are, so within this class we can use anywhere. But whereas these variables are local variables, the scope of these variables are within this object, within this method. We cannot use these variables out of this method. So that I assign this name is this name value I'm assigning to this variable, because the scope of this variable is within the method, but I want to use this name out of this method somewhere. So then I must assign this local variable value to class variable. So I have used this. This dot name is nothing but this is the variable of class variable. This dot roll number is nothing but this is the variable of class variable roll number. But this name and this roll number are these two. So what happens here, when I assign student S1 equal to new student of Razu 101, then what happened, the name will be Razu, the roll number will be 101 for the local variables. But as of now, if there are no this dot name and this dot roll number, the name is null. There is no value for this name. The roll number is 0. There is no value for this. But for these variables, the name is Razu. Roll number is 101. But when I add these lines of code, now this is the name. This name we are assigning to this dot name is nothing but this name we are assigning to this name, and this roll number we are assigning to this roll number. Now the class variable name is Razu, class variable roll number is 101. So now I have created an object that is student S1 equal to new student of Razu 101. This is one object. This is one object. And then I'm going to create one more object, that is student S2 equal new student S2 Giri 102. And then one more object S3, that is Giri 102. Now The equals method is the equals method is for comparing the objects, whether these are equal or not, whether these objects are equal or not. For comparing these objects, we will use this equals method. So the object class has a equals method. That is, this is the equals method. So now I am comparing S1. S1 is the object dot equals of S2. Dot equals of S2. If it is equal, it will return true. If it is not equal, it will return false. Now, the one more condition I am checking, that is S2 object. What is the S2 object? Giri 102. And then S3 object. What is the S3 object? The S3 object is also Giri and 102. So, when you compare S2 dot equals of S3, whether the S1 object and S2 object, S3 objects are equal or not. Are equal or not. If it is equal, then it returns true. If it is not equal, it returns false. Yeah, okay. Okay, enough. So now let us check it. Just do the right click and run as Java application. As you see, both are false. So S1 not equals of S2 and S2 is not equals of S3. So here S2 is one object, S3 is also object. So you may have doubt that this is a Giri 102 and Giri 102. Both are same. These both are same. Then why it is not returning true? It is returning false because the object class equals method. The object class equals method compares the references, is compare the references. Now S2 S3 are two different objects. S2 S3 are two different objects. How it will create in the backend is, so the other way is, one more way here I will show. S2 So how it will create an object is, the backend for S1 it is Razu 101. S2 S3. Now here we have the object. Here we have the object. And here we have the object. Now this S1 is representing this object, and this S2 is representing this object, and this S3 is representing this object. Now these three are three different objects. These three are three different objects, not same objects. This is one object, and this is one object, this is one object. These three are three different objects, so that it is returning false. S1 dot equals of S2. So these two are two different objects, and S2 dot equals of S3. These two are also two different objects. S2 is a different object, S3 is a different object, so that it is returning false. But string class will have again the equals method. The string class equals method will differ something different, so that we will discuss later. So as of now, these three are three different objects. How it will create the object in the background? In the background it will create the object like this. So these three are the three different objects, so that these are returning false. So no object is equivalent to other object. These three are three different objects. Okay. So for comparing the objects, whether these both objects are equals or not, for comparing we'll use the equals method. Then the other method is clone method. The other method is clone method. What's the usage of this clone method is, if you want to define the exact same object, if you want to define the exact same object, what's the meaning of clone? The meaning of clone is the similarity. We can, if you wanted to produce the same one more same thing, then we call it as a clone. So what you do this clone method is, see here I have created a class that is test. If you want to implement the clone, that class must implement clonable interface. That class must implement clonable interface. This interface is available in java.lang package. So if you want to implement clone, if the class is not implements the clonable interface, then we can't use the clone method. If you want to use the clone method, the class must implement the clonable interface. So now in this class I have created two variables, I value and j value. I is value 10 and j value is 20. I value is 10, j value is 20. Now I'm going to create an object for this class, that is test t1 equal to new test. This is a way of creating an object for the class, for the test class. And now I'm printing the values of the t1 dot I. T1 is the object of this class. T1 is the object of this class. T1 dot I. So I is the class variable. So as I told you previously, the scope of these variables are object. So whenever we create the object, using that object we can call these variables and methods. So t1 dot I, then which value will call? This value will call, that is the 10. Then t1 dot j, what's the value of t1 dot j? 20. It will print 10 and 20. So now what I'm doing here is, I'm assigning for I 100 and for j 200. Now the I value is the t1 object, I value is So T1 object, now T1 object is 10 and 20, 10 and 20. Now I'm going to create one more object, that is test T2, one more object. So for this object, I am cloning the T1 object. Now T1 object value, what is the T1? T1 is, now here I assigned 100 and 200. T1 dot clone, T1 dot clone. Then what happened? The T1 object it will clone and will assign to the T2. Will assign to the T2. Now one more object I am creating, that is test T3. Here also T1 dot clone. Again T1 object I am cloning. When I clone, the same similar object will, the duplicate object will create as a T3. Now I am printing T2 object, T2.i and T2.j and T3.i, T3.j. So now these both objects, T2 objects and T3 objects, both objects will have the same object, that is 100 and 200, 100 and 200. Because the T1 object is cloned. The T1 object is cloned. So these values are taken as a duplicate object because of this clone method. So if you execute this, run as, see, for the first statement, for this statement, the values are 10 and 20. For these two statements, the values are 100 and 200 because these values are cloned. These values are cloned. See, in case if you do not assign these values, if you do not assign these values, just I am commenting it. Just I am commenting it. Now all objects. So for first object T1, what is the T1 object? 20 and 10 and 20. Now T1 object I am cloning. What is the T1 object as of now? 10 and 20. When I clone, T2 object also will be the 10 and 20. T3 object also will be the 10 and 20 because we are cloning this object, the same duplicate object it will create. So when I run now, so all objects will return the same value. 10, 20, 10, 20, 10, 20. Because here for T1 object only we assigned the values here. But for T2 there are no value. For T3 this T1 dot clone, then when I use the T1 dot clone, then the T1 object it will create the duplicate object and will assign to the T2. For T3 also same T1 object we are creating a duplicate object and then assigning to the T3. Now here we are printing T2 object and T3 object. What is the result of T2 and T3 objects? The T1 object result. Whatever the T1 object is returning the result, the same result is returning for T2 object and T3 object. So that is the usage of clone method. So when we will use this clone method is when we want a backup of same object. So what happened once the object usage is completed, then it will garbage collect. So it will remove from the memory. So then after some time we require the previous object. When we require previous object, we cannot get it because it is removed, it is garbage collected. So if you want the previous object as a backup, then we will use this clone method. So now the T1 object is cloned and will save in some other variable. So whenever we require, then the previous object and current object we can compare it, whether both objects are same or not. When will happen it is when we have a form, That is, you have entered your details. You have entered your details. And then you have saved your details. And later, again, when you update your details, so your mobile number is something 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Later, what you do, again you will give the same mobile number and then you will click on save. It doesn't take it. It doesn't take it because it compare the previous object and the current object, whether the previous object and current object are same or not. Yes, if there is a same, then it doesn't work the save function. If you change something, instead of 1 2 3 4 6 5 6 7 8 9, if you give 9 8 4 2 3, then it will take it because it will compare the previous object and current object. So when it compare previous object and current object, these two objects are differ, so that it will, the save function will work. So for such functionalities we will use this clone method in real time. So these are the four important methods of object class. Those are toString method, hashcode method, equals method, and clone method. Then in lang package, we have the other class, that is string class, that is string. So here, where everywhere we'll use the string. This is a class. This is a class where it is available in java.lang package. It is available in java.lang package. So as I told you previously, if you want to use any other package class, we must import that package. But for java.lang package, we don't need to import. See here, is there java.lang package? No, but still we are using this string class. So this string is a class. Now let us discuss about this string class. There is a lot to discuss about the string class. So a string is a class. String is a class available in java.lang package, and the string is immutable. String is a immutable. The immutable is nothing but we cannot change the object of a string. Once we create an object, then we cannot change the object of a string. That is immutability. What is the string immutability? Once we create an object of a string, then we cannot change an object of a string. An object of a string. That is string immutability. So let us see what the string immutable. Now see here, I have created